that Nikki Kiymba is online, which is wonderful. So I'll hand directly over to Nikki Kiymba from New Zealand, who will talk about...
Alice, sorry to interrupt. There's one thing I should have said, which is that it's lovely that everyone's had their cameras on while we're greeting everyone for the first 15 minutes. But during people's talks, can you please try and make sure you both have your camera off and your microphone off? And then when we start the discussion after each one, if you can obviously turn your microphone on to make a comment, and also turn your camera on if you want to make a comment, but then for the next speaker, turn them back off. And during the talks, the chat room obviously is open. What worked very well yesterday was people putting their questions down on the chat as the system went through, as the talk went through. And someone, the chair or one of the rest of us, will summarize those, and therefore the chair can then have all the questions which are already available to ask at the end of the talk. Because everything's a very tight timetable. All the speakers only have 15 minutes with 5 minutes for discussion afterwards. Sorry to interrupt, Alice. I'm turn my camera up now.
Thank you very much for reminding all of us. Yeah, so I'll handle over directly to Nikki Kiymba from New Zealand, who will talk about the impact of having a family member in addiction. And so I'd ask you to share your screen, and you got a maximum of 15 minutes, and later there will be the opportunity to ask questions. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks very much. I'm just sharing my screen, so I'm hoping that that's just coming up any minute. Yeah, there we are. Thanks for that, Richard. It was really good to hear you talking about practice-based evidence as well as evidence-based practice, and it's really, really important to us to collaborate closely with practitioners. So I'm based in New Zealand, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. So this project is a collaboration between an organisation called Bravehearts, and Erin is in the crowd somewhere. I feel a bit like an ABBA song, somewhere in the crowd. Erin, you are there. So you're there? Yes, great. Well, we've got a little recording of Erin just introducing, but I'm hoping that Erin, you'll chip in for the question bit at the end. So I'm from Bethlehem Tertiary Institute, which is a private faith-based tertiary institute in New Zealand, and Erin is the founder and CEO of Bravehearts. So this is the beautiful Bay of Plenty in Aotearoa. Beautiful miles and miles of beaches and palm trees. It's gorgeous. But we also have a major problem with addiction here. You know, although you might just think that we live in paradise and that we wouldn't have any problems here, it's actually quite a considerable challenge for the country, particularly amphetamine use. So Bravehearts is an organisation that's been here since 2016 with volunteers now all over New Zealand. So I'm just going to click onto the link with Erin talking a little bit about the organisation to give you an overview of what it is.
Tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Erin O'Neill. After a long and painful journey of many years with a methamphetamine addicted family member, I founded a registered charity which has in 5 years grown rapidly. Bravehearts began in 2016 in Tauranga. Myself, another mum and a policeman advised a support meeting for families. We had 60 turn up to that meeting, followed by 270 at a subsequent awareness seminar in the local boys' high school. We currently hold 7 meetings per month nationally, as well as a monthly Zoom meeting for those who have no support in their region. We also provide peer support, one-on-one sessions with families using a WHANAU toolkit template that provides them with a plan relevant to their situation. This gives them a purpose and a focus on what they can do to protect themselves, which in turn can create a shift in the addicted family members. We also connect with other organisations, particularly if we believe families would benefit from a clinical approach as well as peer support. We also have a Facebook profile on which members can post confidentially within a group, and a page which is open to the public. Our focus is on education and support through connectedness. We do not underestimate the value of peer support. When we offer advice, we are speaking from experience. Our journeys have equipped us to understand and be effective, total empathy. There is also immense empowerment in groups, paddling together in the same waka, sharing our knowledge and experiences. Knowledge is power. We also focus on advocacy around therapeutic rehabilitation and stigma. Survival of the family is important, but they are not taken down with the addicted family member means consequences that will ultimately protect the family and hopefully enable.
Nikki, you're muted.
I was just trying to say thank you in the chat box, and I accidentally pressed the button and ended Erin. Apologies, Erin. She was just almost at the end of her introduction about Brave Hearts anyway. So I'll just find my way to the next slide. Apologies, I'm not used Teams before. So I'm a clinical psychologist by background, and my specialist area has always been working in trauma. I wouldn't say by any stretch that I'm an expert in addictions, but that's why working in partnerships with other people is such a benefit. So Erin is an expert in the sense that she's lived through a family member with addiction, and now has spent the last 5 or 6 years supporting other family members who have someone in addiction. So what we did in this collaborative partnership is think that we're going to start off with just a simple survey of all of the members of Brave Hearts and another organisation called Grandparents, who are looking after their grandchildren, very often of their own children who are in addiction, who can't care for their children. So we did this big survey just to get an idea of what's going on for people. And the next stage of our project will be to do some more qualitative interviews. So what I'm just presenting today is the findings from our initial survey. And these are the 3 questions. How do you feel about having a family member in addiction? What's the physical cost, and what helps you cope? So these are the results to the first one. What's the physical cost? And as you can see from this, huge amounts of people having to access mental health or physical health services, half of them having to take time off work, some people having to give up work completely or have been in hospital because of the challenges of supporting a family member. In that other section, lots of people were saying there's physical and mental strain, care of grandchildren, financial loss, family relationship strain, and being exhausted and lack of sleep. So we really wanted to just understand what is it like for these family members, because once we know what they're struggling with, we're going to be in a better position to focus our resources on provision of what's going to support them best. The other side of this project is that we're developing a postgraduate certificate diploma in working with addictions, and we just don't want to make up any old diploma in working with addictions. We want to make sure it's absolutely targeted to the needs of our communities in Aotearoa, which is why partnership working and research is absolutely vital to us in informing the development of our training for local counsellors and social workers. How do you feel? And obviously, you know, Erin is very, very close to the ground, and some of the questions that she put in there in the multiple choice were embarrassment, guilt and shame, because she knows that they come up a lot. And as you can see from the results, half of the people in the surveys agreed that these were the predominant emotions that they felt. And this is really important because knowing about how they feel, guilt, shame and embarrassment are all interpersonal emotions, and they're emotions that will potentially inhibit or prohibit someone from accessing services. So knowing about this is vital to thinking about how we present the services. In the other category, sad, angry, frustrated, helpless were some of the main emotions that people talked about. But, you know, we were stunned by the huge range of things that people said: devastated, bewildered, alone, disappointed, consumed, inadequate, to failure, hopeless. It's hard to capture, really. I've tried to do it in a word cloud, but the amount and the range of emotions that people feel as they're going through that experience of supporting a family member. And the final question was, what's been most helpful? Now, this is really useful, particularly in the COVID environment, where we're thinking about lots of resources and support online. And all of those people that were surveyed, only 27% said that online or telephone support was the most beneficial to them in helping them to cope and helping them to manage. So this is actually quite informative for us in thinking about services moving forward, because what they're talking about is, you know, you've got 50% there saying that attending in person is actually more beneficial. Now, this could be culturally partially related to our context in Aotearoa, where we have a very strong Māori community and with a collectivist community culture rather than our Western individualist culture. So again, you know, the importance of research that's specific to the region that you're working in is shown up by the fact that this slide also talks about family and whānau support. Whānau is our Māori, te reo Māori word for like an extended family. And Erin's interpretation of this for me was that what's meant by that is probably the family and whānau support of those in the support groups that people attend, rather than their own nuclear family. So our take-home messages, you know, that families of addicts are feeling shame, guilt, embarrassment, which are emotions that are likely to make it difficult for people to feel that they could reach out for help. And the second take-home message is that what our people that we've surveyed have said is that they prefer face-to-face rather than telephone or internet support, and that having educational information is really, really useful for them. So that helps us definitely moving forward in shaping services. So how does that help us plan? One of the things that Erin has spoken about is really important is peer support. And, you know, from a psychological point of view, just thinking about the fact that someone is likely to feel less shame if they talk to someone who they know has experienced the same thing. So peer support offers a way for family members to start this journey of their own recovery, you know, in parallel to their family members' recovery from their addiction as well. So peer supporters can provide information, their practical information, empirical research information, and that personal kind of knowledge. And you know, go back to Richard, your introduction about you were talking about different kinds of epistemic knowledge, basically, and our RCTs are great, but personal experience and that kind of knowledge is also absolutely vital when we're working in this field of addiction. So that's what we feel is the way forward is to support our peer supporters with providing the information and the educational materials, and helping Erin to sort of raise the funds that she needs to carry on running these groups across Aotearoa. So that's our little whistle-stop tour of our research so far. Very welcoming of your questions and comments a little bit early, you'll be glad to know.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for also this important issue regarding the practical experiences of family members. I haven't seen any questions yet in the chat, so I'll take the privilege as a chair to start with one. And I was wondering actually about what kind of family members you were talking about. So how did you approach them? Because, and second question, we had an AFINet project regarding on the topic how to reach family members in larger numbers, because there's a large group of family members who don't look for help, and whether you might, what is the situation like in New Zealand, and probably do you have any ideas how to expand the services to people who have all these barriers you mentioned, guilt, shame, and so on, and how you might be able to reach them better?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, and you know, Erin's done a great job in terms of the Facebook pages and the communication channels that she's developed so far. I'm just hoping that Erin might be there somewhere to answer that question, because she'd be in a much better position. I'm the sort of academic-y research side of this, and Erin's on the ground with the families, talking to them. You know, Erin?
Erin is listed as being in here.
Yes, I am here.
Yes. Okay. So are you able to answer that question?
So the question is, people feel shame, so they don't come forward. Yeah, there is a lot of that. And part of what Brave Hearts does is advocate to have that stigma removed so that people can come forward and get help. Does that answer your question?
I think it was partly, Erin, you know, how have you developed those networks? How have you managed to reach out to people?
And also, if I may come in, I mean, you got 728 responses to the survey. Now, that means that there are 728 family members who have identified themselves as family members and have responded to us to the survey. Now, in our world, that's quite a large number. So how on earth did you get them?
Well, we actually have over 2,500 people in the Facebook group. We put it out there to our email database, we put it on our Facebook group, and 750 people replied to the survey. So there are a large number of people that do join, like closed Facebook groups, but not public groups. These are closed Facebook groups.
I just noticed Steve's question about reaching out to Māori in our communities in Bay of Plenty, and one of the things that we're doing as an institute is working a lot closer with local iwi. For those in other countries, these are like tribal groups, and the chiefs of those groups would be very influential, important people in the area, and the better we can work in partnership and collaboration with them, the better our findings and results and processes from there on will be. So in answer to that, Steve, you know, at BTI we're really working hard to build relationships with the iwi folks that we already have relationships with. Have you got particular things that you're doing as well, Erin?
We work with the Ngaitarangi iwi here in Tauranga. We also have 3 Maori on our board. And I see here, Therese Collins has asked, do we have monies available for advertising? No, no money available for advertising. It's a lot of it is word of mouth.
And I suppose that's important. Hey, if I could just unmute myself, yeah, word of mouth, getting someone who has had an experience of the service to then spread the word. I think that's kind of how it seems to work up here in WHANAU, is that if someone has a good experience, they spread the word, and it's about then being able to have, I suppose, like Facebook groups and those kind of resources where people can connect. So yeah, thanks for that. And next time I'm in Whakatane, I'll try and hunt you down if you're in and around that area.
Wonderful. I've just been up north with 2 members of Naitarangi, having a look at what you do up there.
Okay, yeah.
Very, very impressed.
Yeah, there's different organisations that do all sorts of different stuff. I'm a bit of a private practitioner up here, but yeah, Ngāti Hini Health Trust have obviously done quite a across Tai Tokoro. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I guess my position on the funding, and it might be relevant to lots of people, is that I feel that as academics, we're in a privileged position where we can work closely with grassroots organisations like Erin's and help. And we haven't, somebody was asking whether we published this data yet, and we're in the process of writing it up. But what we want to say is, look, there's evidence here which will help Erin to go to funding bodies to show them the kinds of support that is needed and the extent of the need that there is there. So that's where we're up to with funding at the moment.
Therese, yes, we do have we have an open page if you want to have a look at that. It's Bravehearts NZ, and we have a closed group as well. The members only from New Zealand, mainly from New Zealand, but there are a few from overseas, some from Australia, and a few from overseas, but mainly New Zealand.
Therese is one of those strange people I talked about earlier who decided to get up at 3 in the morning. She's in the United States at the moment, trying to stay awake, I can imagine.
I just would like to add, there have been some questions regarding whether you have available materials or publications that might be accessible to participants. And of course, another issue, like I already mentioned, the AFINet website is a repository. So probably if you've got available materials you would like to share, this also might be an opportunity to use our website.
Yeah, that's a really great point. We can have a chat about that, Erin, can't we? Because I know that you have got some amazing resources that we could talk about, sharing those with you. And as we develop more, yeah, we'll definitely reciprocate those things. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, so are there any further questions from the audience at the moment? So I'd say thanks very much, and we'll keep in touch. And